All right, cool. Thanks everyone for hopping on. This is the third week of making multifamily money. There's some new faces here, so I'll just kind of start over about my story from scratch. I started in real estate back in 2017. I'm based in California. I started off in single family homes. So, in California, a single family home's $1 million typically. So, my goal was to buy one single family home a year for 10 years. And I did that for about 3 years in California, and I quickly learned that it's not scalable. When you buy $1 million home, your monthly payment's going to be roughly, $6,000, $7,000. And in terms of your rent, it's not going to be so strong. So I just realized it wasn't scalable. And that's when I kind of started learning about multifamily. So for me, I actually joined a mentorship program. It costed me about $30,000 to join. And basically, you get taught systems, and you have to give up around some equity on your first deal if you want to include your mentor. So for me, it was actually kind of interesting. Like, honestly, all the education I received, you can get it online for free if you listen to a lot of podcasts or even like what I'm sharing, to be honest. But it's kind of funny that when you pay money for something, like, you take it so much more seriously, because I put literally $30,000 down. That's basically the cost of like an MBA program or a master's degree. And because of that, I was so dedicated to the system. Like, I literally followed the system to a T, and it helped me scale from I got about 86 units in about a year. So I got two apartment complexes and a mobile home park within a year, just following the system. And what's kind of crazy is, just kind of following the system and getting off market deals. So what I do is I do a direct mail campaign. So I basically mail out letters to owners and basically negotiate direct to owners. I don't use any brokers. I don't go on LoopNet. It's just pure off market sourcing. But just on my first apartment complex, I, I made about $250,000 day one. So I bought it for $500,000. The bank appraised at $750,000 day one. So I literally did absolutely nothing and made about $250,000 without touching a single thing. So once I kind of realized that, I just said, "Wow, this is powerful." Like, you know, $500,000 gets you like a condo in California, like in the Bay Area, LA. So, to me, that was just kind of very eye opening. And then another kind of key point that hit home for me was, so the example I like to use is, let's just say you have two single family homes right next to each other. One rents for 5,000 a month, and the other one rents for $10,000 a month. When you go to sell that home, they sell for the same price. It's based purely on sales comps. So it doesn't matter how much rent you get for those single family homes, and that applies for single family, duplex, triplex, quadplex. But once you're above 5 units, that's when you get commercial lending. And let's just say in that same situation, you got $5,000 in rent for a 20-unit apartment complex, and then you have another 20-unit apartment complex that gets $10,000 in rent. The one that gets $10,000 in rent is worth double. So that's what was kind of really eye opening for me in terms of that. So yeah, that's just a little bit of background about myself. So today, I actually kind of want to go over how I underwrite deals. I'm actually going to do a live example, and then if we have some time, I'm just going to talk about. I mean, I call it the BRRRR on steroid strategy, but it's just kind of talking about why the BRRRR strategy is so much more powerful with multifamily. So kind of at a high level for me, like, a lot of like brokers and people make apartment complexes seem so complex. To be honest, it's not. Like, it's really simple. And the way I underwrite deals, it's very like back of the napkin math. So I'll just give you like an example of how I look at it. So typically, if I get sent a deal, I'll ask for a T12, which is basically the 12-month profit and loss statement, and then a recent rent roll. So, today is August 3rd. I'd ask for July for the rent roll. And what I do is I just basically take the gross rents, and then whatever they'll give me an expense, right? And typically I'll divide out the math, and it could be 30%, 40%. If that's the case, that's under they're underreporting the expenses. I automatically assume it's 50%. So right out the gate, I just take the whole income, I divide it in half, and that's basically my net operating income. And then once you have your net operating income, that's how you value apartment complexes, right? So in Oklahoma, where I invest, it's 8 cap market. So I take that net operating income and I divide it by zero point 0.8 or zero point 0.08. And that's how you figure out how to value the property. So, and then in terms of my loan assumptions, I just assume 25% down, 30-year AM. Some lenders, it's 20 to 30, but the lenders I work with, they give me 30 all the time. And then interest rates, I mean, I used to assume 5, but they kind of skyrocketed. So I kind of assume about 6.5 now. So let's just walk through this example here. Let me try to share my screen.
So, Steven, so which program did you join? Your mentorship, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So I joined Peter Harris, um, part of his program, but I only include him on my first deal. Subsequently, after that, like once you kind of know the system, it's not too bad. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
I can see it.
this is literally, I was emailed this deal like this week, and I just analyzed it today. So I just thought it'd be a good opportunity to share. So literally, this is a apartment complex in Arkansas. It's built in 2017, so it's considered an A-class property. So anything I think above 2010 is considered A-class, and they want 4.5 million. It looks like there's additional lots, so you can develop another 40 units sold separately. So this is kind of the broker that emailed me this off-market deal. And kind of for some context, I mean, I've been in contact with this broker for about a year, and none of his deals he ever sent me are any good. So, for me, I don't really depend on brokers to get deal flow. It's just for me to practice, to be honest. So this document I have open. It's called the OM, or offering memorandum. This is what they typically send you, but it's kind of, my joke is the OM stands for lie, in my opinion. But let's just go through it real quick here. So it usually goes over property information. So they gives you an overview. So they want 4.5 million. It's 48 units. So what I typically do out the gate is I'll just calculate the price per unit. So 4.5 million divided by 48. So it's about 93K per unit. And why I do this is because if you guys know real estate, the 1% rule. So basically, if you times this number by 1%, my rent should be around $900 in order to make sure it cash flows pretty well. So that's just kind of a key thing that I look at. And here, so basically, it's 5 buildings. What is it? 4 1 bedroom, 44 2 bedrooms. Gives you the size. All electric. Um, it's built in 2017. There's a gate. Property manager lives on site. Pretty standard information. So here, they just talk about how great the area is, what's nearby, what's local. In my opinion, it's whatever. I don't pay too much attention to this. Um, Once again, more building information. Basically exterior is brick, foundation's concrete. It's a pretty new building. I personally just buy C-class apartments, so they're 1990, 1970 or older. So this is actually pretty new. Occupancy is 100%. So just keep in mind, this is physical occupancy. How many tenants are actually paying, we don't know. So that's called economic occupancy. So here's some more photos. I mean, it's pretty nice. This design's pretty popular in the Southeast. Let's go down. So the brokers love to have these maps that shows what's nearby. So, this Baptist Health is nearby. There's a lot of fast food chains. There's a Walmart. They're just trying to show that, hey, there's a lot of jobs in this area. Not too exciting for me. So these are the proposed plans to add additional 40 units. I personally am not in the business of developing real estate. It's such a headache getting everything approved, and it's very expensive to get loans to build from the ground up. I prefer to renovate existing buildings. Like, I don't want to build anything from the ground up at this level right now. Like, starting out, But once you get more advanced, then you may want to develop, but it may not just be worth all the work and effort. So they're just showing that, hey, we got approved for additional 40 units back in 2017, but it's 2022 now, so it may not even be valid. So here's a financial analysis. So this is probably the most important document in the offering memorandum. So here they calculated the price per unit. They're saying it's a 7.5 cap market. It kind of shows the income here. Let me scroll down a little bit. There's another better tab. So this is where I really spend my most time, to be honest. So you look at the gross income, it's 388K, but look at the gross expense. It's 89K. Like that's way too low. Like let's just do some math here. If you take that 89K, divide by 388, that's only a 22% expense ratio. I know they're definitely lying. Like this was given to me by a broker who studied real estate in college, has certifications, and he's telling me that the expense ratio is 22%. I know that's a lie. So let's break it down even further here. So look at this. Insurance, it's $11,000 for a 48 unit brand new build. My insurance on my 26 unit is $18,000 a year. So I know that's a lie right there. Like they're buying cheap insurance. That tells me they're buying cheap insurance. Like if the whole building burned down, the insurance wouldn't give you enough money to replace that entire building from the ground up. In terms of property management fees, it's only $1,300 a year. So property management is typically 5 to 10%. Since this is a 48 unit, I mean, my property manager in Oklahoma charges me 7%. I mean, you just take the gross rent times that 0.5%. At minimum, property management should be about $20,000, and they're reporting $1,000. So that's why I say it's a lie, right? So I already know out the gate, this expense should be 50%. So this number is a lie. And why they fabricate this number is because the net operating income, they want to make it higher because the property value is based on net operating income. So the broker is saying, hey, the NOI is $300,000, and it's a 7.5 cap market. So you just literally divide it. So that's how he's trying to justify his $4 million price point, but they want 4.5 million. So I already know it's kind of overpriced, right? So how I underwrite it is I just take this gross rent and I divide it by two. I assume 50% expense ratio. So in reality, my NOI is 194K. And if I were to make an offer on this property based on the cap rate, I just divide this number by 0.075. To me, this property is valued at 2.6 million, but they want 4.6 million dollars. So for the sake of the exercise, I'll just still continue to underwrite. So basically, we know the expense is fabricated. So now let's calculate like what my debt service is. So let me just pull up a calculator. I literally just Google mortgage calculator. So I always assume 25% down. That means I have a 75% loan to value. So my loan is $3.4 million. I'm gonna assume 30-year fixed and then 6.5% interest. So my monthly payment just for debt service is $21,000. And tip, so let's just go back here. So let's go back and do my math again. So my gross income, 388K. Divide that by half. This is my NOI. I want to know this on a monthly basis, so divide by 12. My NOI per month is $16,000, but my debt service is 21K. So literally, I'm negative $5,000 a month on this property if I offer on this property. So that tells me that a lender will not even lend me on this property. So it's way overpriced, right? So, so I keep on. Let's just scroll down. So they'll typically show you the rents. So basically, the current rent is at market rent. And remember, I told you the 1% rule, right? So the property value is 4.5 million. Divide that by 48. It's 93K per unit. To hit the 1% rule, each unit needs to rent for around $900. So if you look at all these market rents, it's like 700, 600. Like it doesn't hit the 1% rule, so it's going to be harder to cash flow. And well, this property's cash flow negative. But another kind of pro tip that I do is if you want to know what the market rents are for your market, I literally just copy this address right here. Let me copy and paste this. And sorry, I am going fast, but I'm going to upload this onto YouTube. So just watch this again if I'm losing you guys. So literally, I'm just going to Google this address now. What's kind of cool is you can do a street view to check out the property. But it's kind of funny, like it's empty land here. But this Google Street View is from 2014, and this one is built in 2017. So it was just basically a piece of empty land that was developed into a 48 unit apartment complex. And let me go back here. So what's nice about Googling the address is you can kind of find a lot of information about the property. So let's just pull up on apartment finders, just arbitrarily click on this. So here it kind of tells you availability. So the 1 bedroom, 1 bath, there's 4 of them. There's no availability. And let's click on the 2 bedroom. There's no availability. So this tells me that it's 100% occupied. And sometimes what I do is there's usually a number here sometimes to talk to the property manager. I will actually just call a property manager myself, pretending to be a potential tenant. And then I'll just be like, hey, like, how much does it cost to rent a 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom? And do you have any availability? So that's how I kind of get more information about the property. So let's go back here. How do you find rents? So basically, what I do is we got to figure out which county this Stugate, Arkansas is in. So I'll literally just Google the city, the state, and then county. Here it tells me it's in Arkansas County. Now I know it's in Arkansas County. I just Google Arkansas County fair market rent and input the year. Then you just click on the first one. So it'll tell me. So a 2 bedroom is 700, a 1 bedroom is $530. So actually, if you look at the brochure, they're getting a slightly 2 bedrooms about right. The 1 bedroom's a little bit higher, but it's a newer, apartment, so it makes sense. Um, and here they go over some demographics. Not really arbitrary to me. Don't really matter. So what I did was I emailed the broker. Stop sharing here. I emailed the broker. Oh, I basically emailed the broker and said, hey, like, this is way overpriced. I literally showed the broker my underwriting and said, I'm negative cash flow. No lender will lend me on this deal. So, for me, it became easy conversation. But then I then said, well, hey, like, I'll give you $4.6 million, but you better seller finance me this deal and give me my terms. So, because this essentially in my mind, I'm overpaying this property by a couple $1 million. I'd want 0% down and 0% interest, and you divide up the cost of $4.6 million over 30 years. And that's my monthly payment to you. So that's how I would offer in this deal. And if they just say no, forget it, then I just move on from the deal. So that's just kind of how I kind of quickly underwrite the deal. You see, it took me like literally like 5 minutes. And I already knew my answer. I knew my answer was no already. So once you know your market, you can kind of like for me for Oklahoma City, that's where I invest predominantly. I already can tell you within like a minute or two if I can make an offer or not, and I'll just say, hey, like let me seller finance this deal. If not, then I just move on. I don't want to waste my time with all these deals. So that's why for me, honestly, I've never had a broker bring me a good deal. Like at the end of the day, the brokers they just want commission. They don't even underwrite the deal. They're just showing you a bunch. They're just sending a bunch of deals to a bunch of people. So that's why I do direct mail because it's literally more effective for me to work directly with the owner. And at the end of the day, I'm telling the broker what to do. Like literally, the broker doesn't underwrite the deal for me at all. He has no resources. Like they just throw me the deal and that's it. So for me, they're just like a paper pusher, and I'm telling them exactly like what to do. Like, hey, ask the owner these questions for me, but he may not portray the questions in the way I want to. That's why I prefer to go direct. So that's just kind of a quick way I underwrote a deal. I got sent another deal. I mean, I can underwrite that next week if you guys want me to go over another deal. But I guess before that, before I take questions, I want to go over the BRRRR on steroid strategy. So I'm sure you guys know about the BRRRR strategy. It's popular in the bigger pockets. So let me just go over each step as it relates to multifamily apartment complexes. So B is buy. And honestly, like this is the most important step. Like if you buy a property right, everything else doesn't matter. So for me, my 26 unit and my 20 unit, I bought them right. Like I have three methods of making offers. So the first method I use is the tax assessed price. And you can literally Google that. So you know that property I just um, populate up. So I knew it's in Arkansas County. So what I would do is I would cite Google search Arkansas County Tax Assessor Office. And once that populates, you just copy and paste the address into there. You'll find the property and it'll tell you what the tax assessed value is because it's public information. I make an offer like with that. That's usually the cheapest method. The tax assessed price is always the cheapest price. Like I every time I got my two apartments accepted at tax assessed, the bank valued it way more than what I got the property at. So that's method number one. Method number two is price per unit. So you remember you saw me divide the purchase price of 4.5 divide by 48 units, and it was 93K per unit. So what you want to do is you want to know your market. So like, is that overpriced for the market, or what's the price per unit for that market? So in Oklahoma, I know things are selling for 50 to 60K per price per unit, and I bought mine at 20K per unit. So I know that like out the gate, I'm going to have a lot of equity and upside once I'm done with renovations. And the last method was the net operating income divided by the market cap rate. And when you do the NOI, you want to assume a 50% expense. So on that example, remember there was a 25% expense. So I automatically assume it's 50%. But sometimes the owners are truthful and it might be 60%, then you assume it's 60%. So that's just kind of what I do. And be careful if it's all bills paid. So all bills paid means that the landlord covers everything. They cover electricity, gas, water, sewer. Typically, the landlord only cover water and sewer. So, be careful. If it's all bills paid, the expense can be 60%. So in Oklahoma, that's a very popular all bills paid. So I typically assume 60%. And to find the market cap rate, just ask a bunch of brokers. So, those are the three methods. What I typically do is once I have an offer price for each three, I take the lowest because, that's how people negotiate. So, and what's nice about going off market is a lot of the mom and pop owners, they leave a lot of meat in the bone. They haven't raised rents in the past like 5 years because they're self managing. So you as a new owner, when you come in, like you can just like renovate it and raise the rents to market value. And that's where you get a lot of value, forced appreciation. So that's just kind of the first step. So the most important is buy right. Like you literally have to buy right. Like for example, I bought my 26 unit for half a million. I was offered $1.3 million like 6 months later, and I did absolutely nothing. So I could have made $800,000 in 6 months. Like I think that beats any wholesaler or flipper that I know. Like, and I literally did nothing, and I just bought it right, and I made $800,000. But I'm buy and hold, so I didn't. I turned down the offer because I think long term, like you can be rich or you can be wealthy. If you're rich, you make money today. If you're wealthy, it's long term. So for me, I'm mostly long term. So next step is rehab slash renovate. So this part, it's a little more stressful. Typically, my property manager will help me. So I typically pick property managers that will help coordinate my renovations. So they're typically a property manager slash general contractor, and they typically charge a 5% general contractor fee. So if my renovation is 200K, then they charge 5% on top to coordinate everything. And I typically do that because, I'm based in California and my property is in Oklahoma. So there's no way for me to be there. And I don't want to deal with this. I work a full time job, as a pharmacy director. So, I'm busy, right? It's not worth my time to be managing this renovation. But for me, I'm more bigger picture, right? So for me, like what's popular in California may not be popular in Oklahoma. Like in California, people love light gray, luxury vinyl plank flooring, quartz countertops, gray paint, very neutral tones. But in Oklahoma, they may not care about that stuff, or maybe they like it too. For me, I know Oklahoma, they actually do like the same things. But what the first thing I asked my contractor is, what's the least amount of money I can spend to get the most amount of rent? That's tenant proof. So my words are always clean, practical and functional. As long as I have that, like that's all I care about in maximizing the rents. So like a lot of contractors they'll be like, oh, we should rip out the entire kitchen because like it's old. And I'm just like, well, if I were to sand, degrease the kitchen cabinets and paint it with a with a sprayer and add on new hardware, would that look good enough for a tenant? Like renters don't know. Like if as long as it looks clean and modern, like as long as you spray the cabinets a modern color, like a light gray or white instead of that old uh, wood color, that's all they care about, right? So like replacing a whole kitchen costs like $4,000 versus if I paint my cabinets, $1,000. I save $3,000 and you times that by 20 units or 50 units. So that's where the costs really add up, right? So for me, I always say like, oh, can we save the kitchen cabinets or like and then what's also popular is luxury vinyl plank flooring. Like I love LVP flooring. Like it looks like hardwood. It's very easy to install, and it's tenant proof. Like I could literally scratch it with my keys. A dog can run on it. It won't scratch. I can spill water on it. It won't like swell up like hardwood. The only way you can damage LVP is if you literally drop a boiling pot of water and you leave the pot on the floor for like 5-10 minutes. At that point, you might need to replace it, but it's easy to replace. You just rip it out and attach more. So that's kind of what I do. So typically for me, like I'll repaint the kitchen cabinets, LVP flooring, new paint. I'll do bathroom kits. So my 26 unit, I'm spending about $8,000 to renovate each unit. And then at that point, I said, well, after these renovations, how much rent can I get? And I can raise the rent by $300 per unit times 26 units times 12 months. So you can see how I forced the NOI to go up, right? So that's kind of a rehab slash renovate. The next one is rent. So what's beautiful about apartment complexes is I have 26 units, right? But essentially, I am renovating half the units, so 13. So while I'm renovating these units, literally I'm still getting rent. So like I'm renovating 5 units. I still have like 21 people paying me rent. In single family homes, like you get zero rent until someone moves into that property. But literally with apartment complexes, I'm literally getting like for my 20 unit, I'm literally collecting $4,000 a month right now. It's half full, and that basically covers like all my costs. I'm breaking even on this property while I'm renovating the property. So that's what's crazy about multifamily. Like when I closed escrow, I literally you get money day one. You get all the security deposits plus prorated rents. So I close on the 15th of the month. So I get half the rents for the month of July. So that lowered my down payment. With single family homes, like you can't do that. You don't get any money. Sometimes you get squatters with single family homes. Um, so that's what's kind of nice about rent. And you want to know what the market rents are? So I just showed you how to look it up online. But I typically rely on my property manager and say, hey, like what's the market rent? So they told me like I can get $700 per unit, and currently the rents are at $400. So I know I can bump it up by $300 per unit by spending $8,000 to renovate it. So that's kind of the power of renting. So the next important step is refi, right? So for me, I know so many lenders. Like I spend half my time calling lenders. That's all I do, because for me, I basically want the best terms. Like what's the best for me for cash out refi? I want to pull out as much money as possible. So for me, it's 75% or 80% loan to value of the new value of what I forced. So and then after that, what's the interest rate? How long is it fixed? Is it fixed for 3 years or 10 years? Typically, if it's fixed 3 years, then the interest rate's lower. If it's fixed for 10 years, the interest rate's higher because you lock it in for 10 years. 30-year AM, and I want non recourse debt. So, non recourse debt means that if I go bankrupt, they won't come after my other properties. Recourse debt means if I go bankrupt, they can take my other properties. So, I typically want non recourse, but you have to pay a higher interest rate to get that non recourse debt. And then basically after that, you want to repeat, right? So basically you cashed out refi and then you take out that money tax free and then you go buy another property. And um, so let me kind of share my screen again and let me just show you some basic math here. Uh, Let me share my screen. Sorry, I just wanted to show you my calculator. So for my apartment complex, I said I can raise each unit by $300 per month, right? After renovations. So I take 300 times 26 units. So that's how much increase in rent I get per month. So that's $7,800 a month. And you times that by 12, you just increase your net operating income by 93K. And it's an 8 cap market. So now I divide it by 0.08. So I just forced $1.1 million of appreciation on this asset. So let me show you my cash out refi. So I forced $1.1 million in appreciation. I bought it for $500,000. So basically it's now worth $1.6 million, right? Like after I forced appreciation. So if I want 75% loan to value, I just take this new value, I times 0.75. So my cash out, I'll get $1.2 million, but I want to minus against my current debt. So I owe 390K in the property. So I'm getting 860K. And then now I have to minus my renovation, right? Because I'm doing 8K per unit. So let's just make it $300,000 for simplicity. So literally, I got back all my down payment. I got back all my renovation, and I'm coming out with $500,000 tax free after about 3 years. So that's the power of like forced appreciation, right? So that's why I call it the BRRRR on steroids. I mean, a lot of these fix and flippers and wholesalers, they flex a lot. But I mean, like I just showed you that deal. Like this is my actual deal that I'm doing. I'm gonna literally pull out $500,000 tax free on top of everything else, and now I can buy another asset. And if I want a syndicated deal down the road, I mean, I just show any investor this deal. I'm sure people will throw money at me if I can replicate that deal. So that's why I call this the BRRRR on steroids strategy. And it's pretty powerful. So like this is just one of my deals. And imagine if you snowball this, right? Like now I have $500,000 or $100,000. I can buy an even bigger apartment complex and then kind of repeat that process over and over. So it typically takes around 2 to 3 years to stabilize an asset. And I'm going through it right now. It's there's always delays and things always cost more. I had labor shortages right now. So yeah. So let me pause and let me go through some questions. I'll first. Any questions? Went over quite a bit today, but this is being recorded and it's gonna be uploaded to YouTube. And like I said, I basically just walked you through my whole mentorship course that I paid about 30K for in about 30 minutes. So it's about 60K worth of value. Any questions? I'll leave it up to the forum for some questions. I saw one in the
So,
comment.
Stephen, I got a question about your off-market deal. How do you find those the owner? Do you use like list source like Realnomi or anything like that, or how did you compile those you know owners lists? And how did you do any skip trace for those LSC owner?
Yeah, great question. So I use PropStream. It's $100 a
Okay.
month, and they give
Mhm.
you a free 7-day trial to start. And then from there, I
Oh,
basically just kept put in my county, and then I typically will search between 5 to 100 units because that's a sweet spot. Because I don't want to
mhm.
compete. Like once you're above 100 units, you're competing against the big
Yeah.
syndicators. For me, I'm a small fish, so I'd rather thrive in that smaller market. And then basically that's who I target, and I want to target the mom and pop because I want that like older couple that's like gonna retire. They just want their retirement, so that's what I typically do. Um,
Yes.
and then from there, I basically send the letter over to a company, and they'll basically do the letters for me, and then they'll mail it out.
Mm.
And I typically just wait for them to call me. So I typically send
Oh,
about 300 letters per month. It's a 3% response rate. So about 10 people call me every time I send letters out. And then most of the time, people aren't serious. Like, they kind of want, like, hey, you're from California. You're some rich doctor from California. Um, like, pay me my retirement. But, for me, I do my analysis. So that's how I know. Does that answer your question?
yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. And I see some questions in the comments. So expense ratio, I assume 50% minimum. If it's higher or all bills paid, I'll assume 60%. For refi, so to be honest, for refi, I don't really. It typically takes around 6 to 12 months to do like all the renovations. So like I have a 20 unit, I got a hard money loan on it. There's no prepayment penalty. So if I were to finish all the renovations in like 3 months, I can technically cash out refi, assuming it's stabilized and rented out. Because what the lender wants to see is that each unit's rented out, so they can see the income. And once you have the income, you can say, hey, like I have 18 out of 20 rented. These last two are going to be rented out soon. So they can kind of paint the picture for them. And once you paint the picture, you can pitch them your higher costs. So I bought, to answer Randy's question, I buy in Oklahoma. So I got a 20 unit apartment complex for 350K in Oklahoma. And that gets me a condo in California. Not even a condo, maybe like a shed in someone's backyard for 350K. But after I'm done with renovations and getting the market rent, it's gonna be worth $800,000 after I put in about 100K. So I want to pitch that $800,000 valuation when I do my cash out refi, so I can pull all my money out and get back my down payment, get my renovation, and get back a little extra. So I actually reached out to one of my lenders. I work with so many different lenders, just to ask. I like to engage them early on in the process and share my story of my apartment complex along the way. And he kind of quoted me 75% loan to value, 7% interest. It's non recourse, fixed for 10 years. So that's kind of the new market and how it goes. But for me, I don't really care what the interest rates are. I mean, if the interest rate's lower, I'll just cash out refinance again. But for me, I want to get my money out as soon as possible. So I have $0 in the deal and it's an infinite return. So that's when real estate gets really powerful. And that's like, let's say if you have investors on the deal, that's when you pull out your money, you pay out your investors, and then at that point, you still own the asset, it still cash flows, and you can go buy more properties. Yeah, good question, Tracy. So I actually own all these deals myself. I own 86 units myself. My portfolio is $5 million. I own that all by myself. Oh, sorry, my portfolio is worth 12 million, and I have about $7 million of debt. So have about $5 million worth of equity, and I scaled that in about 5 years. So without any partners. And why I don't have partners is because for me, I'm buy and hold. So if I'm a syndicator and I own 30-40% of the equity, I have to report to the syndicators and the investors what to do. If they want me to sell, I'm forced to sell. But it's a lot of work to find these deals to stabilize it. Like, why would I want to sell it? Like, it's still like, why would you kill a golden goose if you have a golden goose? You want to keep that golden goose. So because of that, I do it myself. And another reason too is, like, to be honest, there's a lot of people just starting out as syndicators and they don't have any experience and they don't put any skin in the game. So like for me, I put my money where my mouth is. Like I've put like $500,000 towards my properties myself, because when I syndicate, like if I lost $500,000 of my own money, like don't get me wrong, it sucks, but like I'm not gonna be homeless. I have to work a little longer, probably a couple more years in my pharmacy job. But if I were to lose, like, let's say my dad's $200,000, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Like that just might be the healthcare side of me. But like, a lot of people, if you watch a lot of mentorships, like they're like, hey, like just raise from your friends and family without experience, but you're gonna lose their money if you don't know what you're doing, right? So like, either A, join someone that like knows what they're doing, or B, just let your family know that you may lose all their money and it might, harm their relationship. So there's a lot of syndicators out there. Like in my mentorship group, one of the students, she went from 0 to 1,000 units, but she didn't put her own money in the game, but she was still able to do it. But for me, like I want to prove it myself first, and after I've done these deals, like I said, it'll be so easy for me to raise money. But I want to put my money where my mouth is, get the system in place so that if I want to scale in Oklahoma City, like I can do it easily. Like I just got in the mail today a 44 unit apartment complex in Oklahoma City, and I just like underwrote it and just said, hey, like this is like overpriced, but if you seller finance me this deal, like I'll give you your price, but you give me my terms. And I just emailed that back to the broker, and he just said, yeah, I'll get back to you. But like literally that 44 units, like right next to my current apartment complex, and I could easily scale. Like I already have a property manager. I know what the rents are. I know how to renovate it if needed. So like on that deal, like I'm out of my own money. So I might need to partner on that one if I want to move forward. But like it's gonna be so much easier for me to like partner because I already have my systems in place. So that's how I personally do things. And like I said, I am buy and hold, but like the reality is, eventually you do run out of your own money. Like I ran out of my own money, but my single family homes in California have so much equity built up into it that I can basically, I call them little piggy banks. You just crack it, 1031 exchange it, and I can trade up my, $1.5 million single family home into like an apartment complex in Oklahoma. So like that's kind of ways to get started. Because of single family homes, you can only down like what 3.5 to 10% down if you have a good job. So that's what I did starting off. Like I only down like 10% on my first home. I bought it for 700K, single family in the Bay Area. It's worth $1.3 million now. I have 700K worth of equity. I can 1031 exchange that into an apartment complex, easily if I wanted to. So, I don't knock on single family, but at this point, it just doesn't make sense for me to buy. Um, so, so yeah, sorry for that long tangent, but just wanted to give some context for that. Any other questions?
Yes, Steve. So I pretty much kind of like the beginnings of where you were at. I guess maybe a few years ago. So I'm closing on an 18 unit like the end of this week, and I BRRRR'd like a one of my properties in California and 1031 into this 18 unit. But then we used like a broker. I'm just curious why you didn't just use a broker, um, and why are you calling around all these like um, lending or banks and hard money lender? Because it seems like if you want to scale, you need like a relationship with a broker so that you can not waste so much time figuring out like lenders. Because I think like going through it once so far with the lending, that seems like the biggest hurdle, especially these value add deals where like the as is NOI just doesn't pencil out for you know a good loan. So you're end up either putting a ton of equity in to make it pencil out until you can stabilize it, or you buy at a higher price. I mean, when did you decide to just go looking for commercial lenders on your own versus looking for like a broker to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, I didn't give the context, but I have three mortgage brokers in every market I work in, at least. So I work with three mortgage brokers, and then I have a lot of relationship with other banks. So I use Bank of the West for my 26 unit, and that was just given to me by a mortgage broker. But typically, mortgage brokers, you do pay them like a 1 to 3% fee on top of that. But yes, to scale, like I'll gladly pay a mortgage broker 3% if they bring me a good lender. But because I've underwritten so many deals, like I've done at least like 500 deals that I've underwritten, I've just built up a Rolodex of all these like lenders. So I just know who are the best ones to work with, a handful of ones that I'll just like pitch my deal to, and I kind of bring it early on. So that is the barrier, right? But then for me, like if one lender says no, like on my 20 unit, I had like 10 lenders tell me no, but the 11th one told me yes because I was so confident in the deal. Just because one lender doesn't like your deal, they have different underwriting criteria. So to me, if they say no, it just means ask someone else. So that's kind of how I approach it. But no, that's definitely a good point. Like for me, like I tell everyone I work with, mortgage brokers, property managers, that I want to scale. And once I have the best of the best, that's all I use. So, I've used, so one that I work with right now is called Corvest. They're based in Orange County, near where I'm at. And they work with a lot of like investors. And, so once you kind of get those connections and networks, you just kind of like know who to go to and pitch your deal to. But at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. It is tiring. Like I do admit, when I'm closing on deals, like most of my time is spent finding lenders. But it's just kind of the nature of the business. And if you use the same lender over and over again, then they know you already, right? They know your skills. They have your personal financial statement. They know how you underwrite criteria, and you have that trust. So yeah, ultimately you do want to use one lender, but like you said, some lenders like they have different appetites for different things. Like I also do mobile homes and self storage, and you need different lenders for those as well. So it's just finding out what that lender is, and even for different markets, like Bank of the West, they like Oklahoma, but they may not like Tennessee, right? For example. So it's just really building those networks and getting the relationships, and you know, that's how you kind of scale. But yeah, it is a pain. So big syndicators, they usually have someone dedicated just to work with lenders. but I'm kind of a one-stop shop right now. I just have a Rolodex that I reach out to pretty fast, and usually I've been able to get people to find my deals because I get them such under market that they like my deals because they know that like for example on my 26 unit, the lender knows that like they're getting, if I were to go bankrupt, they're getting 250K equity day one. Like if they were to take it from me and then sell it to someone else, like they can easily sell it for more than what my loan is. So
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I mean, I think me beginning out, I used a broker just because of the experience. I didn't have much experience, so I helped it. The broker helped you in that they've seen so many deals that it's another set of eyes on the deal itself. But yeah, you're right. If you're gonna scale up, you're gonna just need to keep on adding to your Rolodex of different lenders. But that's funny because that's the lender I used, the Bank of the West too, when I started or in this deal.
yeah. Yeah, a struggle for most people going to multifamily is a lot of lenders don't take you seriously because you don't have experience. Number one, you don't have experience. Number two, you don't have a track record. So like it's just getting that first deal under your belt. And then yeah, luckily Bank of the West. Yeah, so they have two good products. They have an investment HELOCs. So they do HELOCs on investment properties, which is rare in this market now. And then also they will lend on smaller apartment complexes. Um, and it's recourse though, so like you're personally liable for it. So they do look at you a little bit. So it's nice if you have a nice W-2 job. For me, I'm a pharmacy director in healthcare, so I have a pretty decent W-2. But they mostly look at the asset, not so much myself. But like if I were to retire one day and then they just look at my tax records, then at that point you kind of have to go. Maybe you can't go to the Bank of the West, but you need to use a different lender like Corvest, where they look at the asset and not me, but you have to pay a higher interest rate, to work with them. So it's just a give and take, and it depends on your situation. But yeah, I remember I talked to at least like it was giving me heartburn. I talked to like 50 lenders about my deal. I felt like a broken record after a while. But great question, Randy. Any other questions from anyone else?
I do. This is Jenny. Hey, Stephen, thanks for paying it forward. I appreciate that you're sharing your experiences with younger crowds like newer bees, I guess. My question is actually on two front. You mentioned you use a company to mail your letters. That's one question. The cost, the expense, is it a small shop in the area or is it a national shop? Then my second question is, what do you put in that letter that you send out that gets people to call you back?
Yeah, great question. So in the last week, I gave more detail about that. So I can send you the link to that video, but kind of at a high level, I use a company called Yellow Letter Complete. Yellow Letter Complete. They're based in Wisconsin. So typically it costs $1.50 per letter. So if you do it yourself, it's 75 cents per letter. So you're basically paying double the price. But if you were to mail your own 300 letters per month, it takes 8 hours. And to me, it's not worth it to save 75 cents per letter when my W-2 job makes a lot more money. So you're just kind of arbitraging your time. And also, if you want to scale down the road, like let's say it's 1,000 letters, like there's no way I can do 1,000 letters. I'll have carpal tunnel by the time I'm done preparing those letters. So typically for me, I send 300 letters per month, and it costs me about $450 plus $100 for prop stream. So if you want to start a direct mailing campaign, your minimum cost is $550 to $600 a month. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to jump into multifamily, like there's a cost associated, right? Like, you can't be cheap. You can't be penny wise, pound foolish. Like, I know a lot of people, like I said, I paid $30,000 to learn a multifamily, and I'm spending like half a million plus of my own money on the deals, right? So like, in that grand scheme of things, 30K is a drop in the bucket. But for me, I just wanted to make sure I succeeded, because if I failed, then I'd lose more money than that would cost. So that's why it's good to like partner up with somebody with experience, or you can sign up for a course, or like the podcast or whatnot. There's a lot of free education out there, and that's what I'm trying to do too. Obviously I'm sharing a lot of information from my mentorship course. And in terms of the letter, so I typically, you want it handwritten. So on the front, I handwrite the name and address, or not me, but the company handwrites the name and address to create a more personalized touch. And it kind of creates intrigue. And then once you kind of flip the letter open, I actually don't tuck in the flap, so it's kind of loose. And sorry, my video has I actually showed the letter I use. And then once you open it, you just pull out this letter. And honestly, the concept of the letter is you just want to seem like an everyday person. Like I just say, like for example, mine might say like, "Hey, I'm Steven. I'm a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacist for like 9 years now. I'm just trying to build a real estate portfolio to, eventually retire. I currently own whatever 6, 7, 8 properties. I just closed on a property in Oklahoma, not too far from your apartment complex, and I'm looking to grow my portfolio. Like, please reach out to me. Like, here's my cell phone number. Here's my email. If you want to sell your property, and then usually I'll just say like, working with me, there's no brokers involved, so you don't have to pay them, whatever 6%. I'll make it stress free. I'll work with you to get the deal done. Just kind of building trust, right? Like I know a lot of like beginners, they overcompensate and like they have like these fancy like I am Investment Holdings LLC and I'm a big time fish in California, but in reality, most of us aren't, right? Like we overplay it. And my email is just literally my Gmail. Like it's not nothing fancy. Like a lot of people have like it'd be like SDN Corporation LLC at gmail.com, or like at sdncorp.com. It sounds like very sophisticated, but you're targeting mom and pop owners. So at the end of the day, you just want to come off like very casual, that you're just like kind of an everyday person like them, and you're just trying to scale a portfolio. Like, hey, I'm just trying to take care of my family. I want to retire. Like, you just want to come off like an everyday person. Like, you don't want to be like this big fancy suits and tie. Like a lot of people do that. Like especially syndicators, they flex a lot. Like, oh, I own 1,000 units, but they own like 3% of 1,000, which is like what 30 units. I already own more than 30 units myself without any investors. So I mean, it's kind of a flex that I find kind of annoying in the real estate community, but it's just kind of the nature of the business. Um, so yeah, and overall, typically you want to hand sign your letters, and then you want to write a call to action on the letter. So I'll typically write like, Jenny, please call me, Steven, and I'll put my phone number there, like handwritten on the letter. So it kind of like makes it feel more personalized. And then typically they will, like, like I said, if they call me, you better take it seriously, because like you spent $600 a month to get someone to call you. So it's just really important like you follow up with those people immediately, because they're getting bombarded with a bunch of letters too. Like it's not just you, like you have other investors sending them letters. Like every time owner calls me, they're like, oh, I got sent 10 letters, but for some reason I decided to like call you. So for me, I have a doctorate in pharmacy, so I kind of flex my doctor title a little bit to build credibility, especially in Oklahoma. So I will say like Dr. Stephen Nguyen or Dr. Nguyen, just about that credibility. And it makes me appear that I'm very wealthy just by saying I'm a doctor, especially to someone, in Oklahoma. So, you can use your title to your advantage. If you're like a doctor or like a veteran, it definitely plays a favor in some states. So I try to leverage that. So it's not really a one size fits all. Just the key is just getting some content out there, and then you pivot your letter based on the responses. So I hope that answers that question. And any other questions?
I appreciate your answer. Thanks so much.
Okay, I guess as we get more questions here, I guess a question I was asked prior to this call is like, what books I read in regards to multifamily. To be honest, I don't feel like there's a really good book out there for multifamily. For me, I'm very hands on. So for me, I just learn by doing. I'm the type to like jump out of the airplane without a parachute, and I'll build my parachute on the way down, because that's just the way I learn. But I basically just showed you guys exactly how I underwrite the deal. Very simple, back of the napkin math. Doesn't have to be fancy. I have a syndication calculator, but at the end of the day, it's just like a bunch of fancy spreadsheets that you're trying to show investors. But you can easily fabricate like these numbers. Like, but at the end of the day, like you have to like trust someone who's like done the deal and they know the market. Um, so so yeah, it's just kind of interesting how it kind of works. So like a lot of syndicators, they're just like spreadsheet. I call them spreadsheet warriors. They're just like doing spreadsheets, and it's certainly nice. I mean, like if you want to present your deal, you want to have spreadsheets and whatnot. But in reality, it's just like, do you have your systems in place? Like people ask me why I chose Oklahoma. I only chose Oklahoma because I have a really good property manager there. If I had a good property manager in Arkansas, I'd be in Arkansas. If I had a good property manager in Tennessee, I'd be in Tennessee. I just had a good property manager, and that's the key for your business. So that's why I chose Oklahoma. It was just purely because I had a good property manager there, and that's the most important thing for any deal, and that's why I chose it. That's only the reason why, like literally the only reason. So, like I said, just keep it very simple. I don't overthink anything. I just do that stuff. So yeah, and then from the prior calls, I had a lot of people like email me and DM me about one-on-one mentorship, as well as like if I'm working on a course or anything like that. So I am working on something. If anyone is interested in one-on-one consultation or beta testing my course, just shoot me an email or message me. Um, like I said, I'm basically condensing my $30,000 education plus, my experience in doing 3 deals into this education. My goal is I want to make it very affordable. Like I feel like information should be like pretty affordable for everybody, so everyone can be on the same playing field. I came from pretty humble beginnings, so it's just kind of like sharing, right? Like I kind of wish someone taught me. I didn't have someone to teach me, so I had to pay someone to teach me, and I had to pay quite a bit for that. But fortunately, I can afford to do that myself and risk all that. So that's just kind of my goal, my vision. So if you're interested, just reach out to me directly, and um, I'm thinking about bringing guests on the show eventually. So if you're interested in being a guest or know someone who would be good for the show, just shoot me a DM as well. So we got 3 more minutes left. Any last questions? We got one more question.
It's not a question. It's just the book. I just want to share the books for multifamily because recently Bigger Pocket had 2 books came out, 2 volumes, volume 1 and volume 2 with Brennan Tanner and the other guy. So those books are really good. I mean, for in my personal opinion, you know. So one is for the smaller size, and the one is for like a bigger apartment complex, more for syndication. So you can choose either one. I just want to share. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and what's kind of funny is I say I don't read multifamily books. I read profit and loss statements. So at the end of the day, that's what you have to analyze in order to get the deal done, right? So for me, why would I read a 100-page book when I could just get analyze 100 deals? And you just can analyze 100 deals on LoopNet, or once you send out letters, they're going to give you deals to analyze. So for me, like I said, I've analyzed like at least 500 to 1,000 deals to close on two, and that's what you ultimately need to read. And yeah, basically a mic drop. Just know the profit and loss statement, and call out the false expenses. Like I literally showed you a deal sent to me by a broker, and this broker went to the school. He has a certification, and I know it's a lie. Like I own properties in that market. I know it cannot be 25%. So like I don't need an education to know that. I just done deals to do that. So for me, like my phrase is knowledge about action is useless. Like if you have the knowledge and you don't take action, it's useless. So for me, paying $30,000 got me to take action, which got me to exceed. Right. So, if that's what it takes to get you motivated, then paying whatever amount, it's worth it, in my opinion. Like I said, I paid $30,000. I mean, that's expensive, but I'm hoping to kind of create a cheaper alternative down the road. But it just really depends on everyone. At the end of the day, I just want to provide value to people, and just share my journey. And then if I can help one person buy an apartment complex, great. That's great for me. That's fulfilling enough. So it's 1 minute left. It's gonna get cut off. Thank you everyone for hopping on. If you have more questions, shoot me an email. I can talk about it next week. Right now, I'm doing it weekly every Wednesday at 7 p.m. But if the demand's high, I might go to twice a week. I mean, I'll play it by ear. But right now, just every Wednesday to get me through the week. But thank you so much, everyone, for hopping on today. And I'm going to upload this onto YouTube. So if you want to re listen to anything, check it out. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.